Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Roy Kennedy.
I'm Wendy Yee.
I'm Z Garcia.
Today we're taking a look at Freelancers, a Crossroads games designed by Donald Schultz from Plaid Hat Games. This is a sequel of game type
Of Swords.
Yes.
Sequel of Swords.
to their pirate game.
Forgotten Waters.
I forgot the name of that. Forgotten Waters.
That's funny. That's funny that you forgot.
This is a Crossroads game, although it is I don't know if this is their fourth or fifth Crossroads game. It's getting a little confused. But this is the second one that is almost completely based app-wise, or at least an internet-based app that you can do. It's very similar to their last game, the pirate one, Forgotten Waters. Oh, my word. I'm not remembering names today. Anyhow, I'm going to show you how to play this. But before I show you how to play it, I'll say that we just played it live. So we'll put a link to that playthrough in the description of this video. You can just go see that link if you want to see how the game plays. But here's a bit of an overview. In this game, you need to have access to the internet to play the app, although I know on PC and Mac, you're going to be able to download it so you can play it offline if you want to. So you're going to pick a quest. Now, there are 5 maps that are included with the game. So map A, map B, map C, D, and E. At the time of this, they don't have the last 3 maps released, although this one is really soon. In fact, that's today. So looking forward to seeing how this one plays. They have a difficulty on them. You're going to click it, and then it will ask if you want the app to help you set up the game. And that's a big deal because it does a very good job. I'm going to tell you right now, the tutorial is good. And then you're going to pick your species and jobs. So these are all the species, and these are all the jobs. Each player is going to get sheets for them, and the game only comes with a few sheets, so I highly recommend laminating them. So it could be a Goblin Artificer, or a Mouser Gunslinger, or a Merfolk Gambler, or a Stiltkin Knight. Whatever you pick. So let's say I'm an Elf Bard. That's more boring compared to the other one. There's a little bit of like Mad Lib stuff going on here. There's some stats. You'll keep track of your health here. You have different camp actions you can take. These are your stats over here for different activities. If you're going to use smarts, agility, might. These are titles that you can get. On the back here, it tells you your backstory and some possible endings for your character. A way to keep track of your levels. On the back here is a way to save your game. So between that and the back of the map, games, as far as I can tell, take 3 hours or so. And so you can keep track of things if you don't want to play the whole thing at one time. At many points during the game, there's going to be a bunch of text. You can read it, or they have voice work done for the text, or at least most of the text that I've seen so far, with sound effects and things in the background. So you can hear a little bit of it there in the background. Now, you're going to be going through a story. But before you go through the story, you're going to have different jobs for some of the players. One player is going to be in charge of the book. And when you're playing through the book, you're going to be going to different locations. And when players are in a location, you're going to take turns placing your characters on various spots here. And those various spots will have different things that happen with them. Many times it will tell you to put numbers in the app. So there are various locations that you can be. This is part of the game, going to these locations. Another player is the cartographer. They're going to be keeping track of where you are on the map. As you move to various spots on the map, you are going to encounter various things. This shows you a key, what you might encounter, campsites, fortune tellers, etc. When that happens, you're going to just plug in the right thing at the map. So maybe you go to camp, and these are various things that can happen. It's not always going to be the same thing each time, and sometimes they'll give you a decision. Like, for example, if you go to a dungeon, you might get to a spot where you have a decision, swim there, find a boat, build a boat. So I build a boat and do whatever I can. So there's going to be various things that you can do, and a lot of it is going to be on the app, and the cartographer keeps track of where you go. Another player is going to be playing the scout. Whenever you move on the map, or if the app ever tells you to take time, you're going to be pulling tokens from a bag. These tokens are going to fill up your risk track. When a risk track is completely filled across the board, you throw them all back in the bag, and you advance your risk. You'll take this token, throw it in the bag, and these tokens are always bad. And now you have a new risk number here, a threat number, which is whatever number it shows you plus the number of players playing. And many times rolls and things are going to make, various events happen. and you're going to have to deal with those things. Also, sometimes you'll pull things from the bag that are followers, and then you'll just click in their number and read what it says. There's all sorts of things that can show up from the bag. But the most important thing to remember is if you get your dial all the way over here, then the game is over and you have lost. One player can be the influencer. The influence is where you're going to put the different characters, and as you gain reputation, you will go first in different actions, and certain things will affect whoever has the highest and lowest influence on the track here. The medic has all the wounds here for the party, and so whenever a player takes a wound, you're going to put that wound on the character. If they have no space, these wounds get thrown in the bag, which is not particularly good. And if the party runs out of wounds, then the game is over and you lose. There are more things in the game. There are story cards, which are specific items that you might find over the course of the game. There are treasure cards, which are more randomized. When you find treasure, you'll draw these cards, which can be armor or weapons or things like that. And I don't want to show you too much of that because I want to discover it as you play. And then you will either eventually win the game or not. So as you go through the map, you might need to find a specific spot. You'll know when you win the game. Usually there will be a big bad guy enemy you fight. You'll keep track of their stats using the enemy dials here on this board, and you have to beat them. But it might be something else that you have to do, or you might lose in between. So you can go around the map at your leisure. Sometimes there might be very specific things. Sometimes you're in a location book. And again, if you want to see an example of this, we played through a lot of the first map live here on the Dice Tower. Okay, so this game lives or dies, in my opinion, on the app.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you're someone who doesn't like apps in your board games, you need to stop watching, because if you don't like the app part of this game, this uses the app even more than Forgotten Waters did.
Now, I wasn't fiddling with the app because you were playing it, Tom. Does it have, like, the written text? Like, could I turn the volume off and still play this?
Yes.
Okay. That's
it
important.
does, although if you notice, there's some big chunks of story there. So
Yes.
If you wanted to do that, I would not be involved in the game, Wendy.
Because you
Well,
don't want
okay,
to read
then.
it.
I love the way this sounds so much, and the voice that makes this game for me.
10 out of 10.
Oh, the voice acting is great.
Yes.
This is the best
great.
voice acting in any board game. To be fair, not a huge realm out there. I mean, I'd say it's even better than I thought. Oathsworn was pretty good.
Yeah, it's very good. The other thing I will say, though, that this lives or dies by, for you personally, is if you are into and enjoy this kind of humor.
Right.
Because, yes, the voice
That's
acting
fair.
is fantastic, but if you find it dumb or stupid or irritating, and the theme here is kind of goofy, and the voice acting will be goofy, you also might be very quickly turned off. Like, and that's not necessarily super apparent from the cover, that this is going to be tongue-in-cheek, self-deprecating, very silly, you know what I mean? So that's another thing. Both the app and the kind of humor you're getting in here could be divisive. I thought it was fantastic. I was giggling to myself. It's very good and very well done. But be aware, it's a game that is humorous on purpose quite a bit.
So you're saying if you don't have a sense of humor, or you're too much of like a stoic person that's like...
No, even if you just don't like this in board games, if you're like, oh, dumb stuff is great, I just don't want it in my board games.
Also, not showing up to the table with you.
Well, and I think that partly is because it's a story game. And so anytime you have heavy story, you want to find that type of literature that's your style
Right.
and what you're
Yeah.
interested in general. Yeah.
And I wouldn't want stupid humor all the time myself. I mean, like Lord of the Rings, a few moments of humor is great, but I don't want it to be silly all the time. Have any of you all seen Adventure Time?
I love
I've
Adventure
not.
Time. and
This is straight up Adventure Time. In fact, I'd be very surprised if it was not inspired by Adventure Time.
Right. I mean, Adventure Time has that like D&D feel, but it's also post-apocalyptic at the same time, where just really weird things are happening. There's a ton of that in Freelancers, and it really fits that vibe.
And the stakes are high, but not really. You know,
Okay.
we're like, hey, let's go do this. But at the same time, it can delve into some dark places.
Yeah.
Sometimes they give you the choice, would you like to kill this person or not? I don't know what happens when you kill them, because I've always chosen the side of angels.
You're always a
What?
good
Huh.
person.
I love
Don't watch
how
the playthrough.
I love the tropes they bring up, where it's like you're like, oh man, I've kind of seen this before, but they add this ridiculous twist to it sometimes. That's the part that makes it really humorous. It's like, oh, I've kind of seen this. This is familiar, but then they throw it on its head a lot of times, and that's really good story writing, I think, with all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I think overall, I'm just very happy with the writing. I feel like there's been so many story games or campaign games or legacy games that have lots of story. And I love reading and I love listening to audiobooks. I love all of that stuff. And there's so many games that have fallen flat because the writing wasn't well done. And this is very well done.
From this one, I love the accessibility as well. I feel like Forgotten Waters was like this and similar, and I loved all this stuff, but I just felt like the mechanics of it were a little bit more fiddly. This one, it's like super simple. Maybe it's just because my familiarity with D&D and stuff, it makes it really simple to just be, oh, we're rolling the dice for this and this and this. But like, it's really easy to just throw on the table and play. I feel like Forgotten Waters, you have to like learn the rules. They're a little bit more finicky. And I love the accessibility of this one a lot more.
Well, I want to ask you all about that. So one thing I didn't mention in the overview is the dice rolling. You roll 20-sided die to accomplish tests. This is very D in Dungeons and Dragons. And then, depending on how high your skill is, you can add an extra die to that. Now, that's very lucky. People can take stress tokens, which are like light wounds that can be healed to let you re-roll dice. You get re-roll tokens. But I'm going to ask you guys, do you feel like it's a game that much? I mean, other than when I'm describing this to people, I've been saying it's like a giant choose-your-own-adventure.
That's basically it.
It is, yes, absolutely. Which is, again, I think this is one that if I'm in the right mood, this is so free-flowing. It's so easy to play. It is like listening to an audiobook where I'm making a couple of choices. Even the choose-your-own-adventure part is not that strong. You know what I mean? Because I don't know what I'm choosing half the time. I'm like, let's go towards a little skull symbol. Here we go. Boop. Play something for me. And then something happens. Some dumb wizard comes out and says something ridiculous. And yes, I might have a die test, but it's minor. Like the game play is barely there. This is an experiential kind of thing. You got to be on board for that, you know? I had no questions during the play. It went from knowing basically nothing to being like, and I'm playing, and I feel like I didn't even have to stop and learn. I love that. That's fantastic. What other game can really pull that off? There's very few.
This gives me a feel of like Chronicles of Crime in that sense, where you can almost throw Chronicles of Crime on the table and just kind of play it.
Like,
This gives you
scan that, you're now playing the game.
This one's like, plus that, plus pray on that, make this character, put some names in here and a little Mad Libs, and you're good to go. Roll some D20s. That's basically it.
You know, a game that kills for me, finally, for you it's been dead for a while, is Tales of Arabian Nights.
Oh, okay.
See, I never played that one.
Because Tales of Arabian Nights, the whole game, you move around, you make choices, you don't really know what choice you're making, wild and crazy things would happen. This does the same thing, but the wild and crazy things are tied in a somewhat cohesive story.
Sure.
Because if you pick a map, you're playing on a cohesive story. Yes, random wild things will happen. In the Crossroads system, they completely hit it, but it's there. Things will happen based on what you've done, or they'll say, is there this person in your party? Yes. Then this event happens. I like that.
I love it.
And sometimes it happens in the middle of things and it ties into the thing you're doing, which is very, very cool.
I love that too.
Yeah, I don't know how much programming in the Matrix here. I mean, if you have a follower... So, this is a huge spoiler. At one point, we had a follower and he died. And later on, we came to a spot and we pulled that follower out of the bag. And so we read his thing. They're like, is he still with you? We're like, no. And it's like... At this time, you remember what he told you in the past. It went like this flashback thing, and he told you this fly
like
thing.
that.
And, and that's what he would have said if he was still alive, and we all knew it was our fault he died.
Can you imagine? Can you
That's
imagine
pretty good.
if that was all on story cards, and they're like, now go to card 172. Pull this out. Now go to this card. Pull this out. Put this in your active deck. Shuffle it. Like
there's a lot of people that don't like apps and games, but that sort of thing is the stuff like the fiddliness it takes out of it is the reason that this
It's
just works.
I'm
necessary
done with
for this
Matrixes. This handles it.
yeah.
I'm sorry, put
So
the effort
easy.
in.
It's so easy.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, I do realize there's a lot of people who would not be big fans of this because they would say,
Huge.
the game is playing you. I still think you get to make some fun choices.
Right,
And
yeah.
I played through that first scenario twice, and it went very differently. But I do want to mention one thing. There's one minor dislike I have for this game is they have this difficulty. You can set on story, easy, or hard. I don't even know what the point of hard is. Then it makes the game harder. But it's not. It's a story you're just going through, unless you want to see like what the stories are like when you mess up all the time.
Gotcha.
Maybe
But
the punishments are stronger.
Well, I went through on hard, and I didn't know that it's just basically the tokens coming from the bag. I think that's the only difference.
Oh, okay.
Oh, gotcha.
But if you start pulling tokens from the bag and it ramps up, the game ramps up in difficulty very easily. In the first game I played with my kids, we just got massacred at the end, and we didn't really have a shot at it. And it was still fun. Everyone still enjoyed the experience, but I just don't know why that level of difficulty is even there for a choose-your-own-adventure. If I chose wrong decisions and they come back to haunt me, but if I'm rolling dice and I need to get an 18 or higher to
you
get
gotta
it,
roll better.
yeah, that doesn't have that same kind of feel. That's my only small thing, and I'll jump in here right now and say my rating for the game's a 9. Okay, I love this thing. It's the best story writing I've encountered in the game. The voice acting is amazing. I love the theme. I think that post-apocalyptic silly animals. The fact that there's a dung digger as one of the roles, and there's a private eye, and how they switch themes, and it's such a terrific experience that it has really beaten up on other experiential games. What's the one you guys love with the dice? I like it too, but
Destinies?
Destinies. Like, this kills Destinies for me. It's so much more fun.
It's different for me. Yeah, it fills a different niche for me. They're both story games, but they're very different mechanically, and they
Destinies is a darker story.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
And that's fine by me. I wouldn't mind seeing this with a darker theme too, and with that, it's just that the system is so much better.
Right.
I love this
Well,
system.
there's less system in here. Destiny's
Well, most of
has
it's
a
in the app.
system, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, Destinies has a great combat system and everything like that.
yeah.
I get that. But I'm saying a lot of the story in Destinies, I was like, I was bored occasionally.
Sure.
I
This
was
has
never
more-
bored in this.
This has less gameplay, if you want to think of it that way, more story. And again, that's something that I think is going to split a lot of people. I can tell, you should honestly be able to tell by now, especially if you watch the playthrough,
Right.
if
Yeah.
you'll like this or not. If you think you'll like it from watching it being played, there's nothing else to it. I mean, like, you watched everything, except you'll be rolling the dice with your own hand. Like, that's the game. You know what I mean?
I'm
I
going to
like
get a
that.
dice app just so that I can fully
You could do
integrate
that
into
too.
apps.
But when this hits right, and when I'm in the mood for this, I'm right there with you. I'm also giving this a 9.
Oh, wow.
I think it is fantastically fun, hilarious. This is a blast. This is, if I want to play something like this, I can't think of anything else that I would go, that'll be easy, and everybody can jump in, and you don't have to worry about learning too much. Here we go. Yeah.
Very nice. Okay, well, I'm also giving it a 9, and for
Whoa.
me, it's the writing. The writing is so well done, and the voice acting is so clean and entertaining. Like, I just feel like it hits in all of those ways. And so for me, this is one that I'm like, yes, if I want a story and I want to sit down and I want to just really enjoy that, this is the game to pick.
For me, like, I love Dungeons & Dragons. I love this theme. I love post-apocalyptic Dungeons & Dragons. Like, I love Adventure Time style stuff. I love storytelling. I love everything about this game. I'm giving it a 9.5 just because, like, this is the kind of game for me. I love cooperative games as well. This has everything I want. This is definitely going to be on my games of the year, 100%. There's no way it's not going to. I can see it going extremely high. I can see it going high in my top 100 over the years. I loved Forgotten Waters. It was super high, and this is more accessible. And that's why I'm going to play this game more, just because it's so easy to get to the table. I love Freelancers. It's great.
One last thing. This is not necessarily super kid friendly. It says 14 plus on the back. I would say that's a decent rating.
Also, if it asks you if you want strong language or not,
That's up to you, but
it's important.
that matters. Alrighty, anyway, that's Freelancers. I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Roy Kennedy.
I'm Wendy Yee.
I'm Z Garcia.
Post-apocalyptic times are now.
Yeah!